Hello and welcome to the lounge with Sarah, the Pivoter Calmetta. Today I have Lloyd Banks in here with me today, and we're going to be talking about quitting the things that don't matter. Lloyd,
Yeah.
I love your shirt.
Thank you. I have lots of them, and my 11-year-old daughter's friends all like shake their head at me, and it's too hard to explain to them. So whatever, it's fine.
They'll understand one day. They'll
Yes,
understand.
absolutely.
Lloyd, I really loved that you decided to like own this part because so much of our world is, like fake it till you make it and only, losers are quitters. And,
Yeah.
we have to like persevere no matter the cost.
Yep.
And so that can create some really unhealthy patterns, some toxic, like internal things that can occur, but also, you know, um, we don't always know what we want, right? Like this idea of I should know at 18 years old what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, like that's laughable to me now. But
Right.
of course, when you're 18, you think that that's forever.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about your journey with quitting and in your relationship to it.
Yeah. And thanks for letting me do this again. I appreciate it. I grew up in sports. I mean, I was like most kids growing up. I mean, I played all the sports, and then I landed on tennis, and that was my thing. And I was taught like all these other young kids, like don't quit, never quit, never quit. And we thought we were all taught it was a bad thing to quit. You can't quit. You shouldn't quit. It's horrible. It's awful. It's and to a point, I get what they're saying now, but it's all about context, and nobody was
Mm,
putting it in the right context, and most people still today don't. And I hear it used incorrectly all the time, and it rips me apart. I want to go jump in on other people's conversations and go, "Excuse me, can I just jump in here real quick?" But
if I may.
yeah, and so like I said, I grew up like everybody else, learning that quitting was bad, and then when I got older and I started realizing that some of the things that I was doing in my life, whether it was bad habits or behaviors or whatever it might be, I realized, you know what? When my life got better is when I quit those things. Maybe quitting's not all that it's cracked up to be. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's not, quit is not necessarily a 4-letter word, like it's not evil. And so, went through that whole process and didn't really know what it meant back then. And it wasn't until, a few years ago when I got out of the hospitality business after 25 years, and I started writing, and I went to heroic public speaking and started trying to figure out what it meant to be a keynote speaker, because somebody told me I should try that. And so I started writing, and one of the brilliant writing coaches there, she just said, just write stories. I don't care what they're about. Just write stories. And then she came back to me one day and said, I notice that a lot of your success and a lot of your joy and happiness came after you quit things. Did you notice that? And I was like, nope, didn't put that together. And she goes, have you ever thought about kind of like your overarching story being about quitting? And I was like, hadn't thought about that, but that's brilliant. Let's do that. And so, I thought, look, I've always been a rebel child, and one of that rebellious ones who was always, anti this and, whatever, anti-authority. And I was always a kid who was in trouble most of the time. And so I thought, that sounds rebellious. Let's go with quitting. And so, and at first it just sounded like a good idea. And then when I started rewinding and reviewing my life and things, and I was like, man, she's right. And then I started hearing it from other people and seeing it in other people's lives and on a movie or wherever I saw it. And I was like, okay, this is something, this is something. And it's not something I see enough people talk about or put quitting into context. I'm going to be that guy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's that reflection from someone else who can see, because when you're in it, you don't always see those patterns or you don't recognize that that's a superpower, right?
Right.
Because it's just something you do and it's second nature.
Yeah.
But when someone else can reflect it back to you, you can go like, oh yeah, let me noodle that a little bit. And
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, that's where Sarah the Pivoter also came from. People
Yep.
used to always be like, wow, you're so brave. You're so courageous. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, you just went to China with like 2 suitcases and then ended up living there for 13 years. Or you just went and did this thing, or like no fear, just tried the thing. And I was like, what? Like same thing.
Yeah.
It's not something you really recognize. And so for everyone else out there, I bet you have a superpower,
Yep.
but you don't see it yet, or you
Yep.
don't recognize that it is super for most other
sure.
people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think everyone, you ask people what their superpower is, and I think everyone has one. And you're right. Most people don't recognize them till, I don't know. Some people I think figure it out on their own, but I think most people, someone has to tell them what it is. And then
Yeah.
I hope they run with it, because I think there's enough
Yeah, they
people.
own it.
Yeah, they don't understand they have it. And then once you understand it, go with it, man, because I promise you there's thousands of other people that need to hear your story and need your help and need you to pull them along. And so, I
Yeah,
love when people find their superpower. It's great.
me too. I mean, well, and this is why I like to ask the question, because it
Yeah.
really, it's just, it's a bit of self-awareness there, but it's also like there's this narrative too that plays of like, I got to be humble. I can't talk about myself because that's bragging, or, cocky, or whatever story you hold about it.
Yeah.
But when you really stand in your power and you just like allow your light to shine and you're like, yeah, this is me,
Yeah.
you can still be humble. It's not like you're like, oh my gosh, look at me, I can do this thing.
Right.
It's just you're doing the thing and you're doing it well, and you're like helping shine that light on for others and
Yeah.
letting them see what's possible.
Yeah.
And it's we gotta quit this whole I gotta hide myself thing. And you know
Right.
what that is? You know where that stems from? It
Uh,
stems from, if I hide myself, I'm gonna make you more comfortable.
right.
Right? Because
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle my own emotions
Right.
if you do something that makes me uncomfortable. So in
Right.
order to feel comfortable, I gotta make you feel comfortable. And you're
Right.
constantly playing, like you're tiptoeing around. It's a tap
Yes.
dance. It's this like, and then you're never really settled.
Yeah.
And it is exhausting to do that.
Yeah.
And I know from experience.
Yeah. And especially these days, I mean, look, I'm old, so I can say, like I remember
You're
back in the
not
day,
old.
you could
He's
say
not
and get
old.
away with. Well, I mean, I'm older. I feel great. Don't get me wrong. Like I feel great.
You're
Whatever.
experienced. You're just experienced. This
Experience.
is the
That's
new
right.
terminology.
All these grays tell me that. So, um, but like it was a different day and age when I grew up. I mean, people said whatever the heck they wanted, man, and it didn't matter. And if somebody was mad at you, whatever, it didn't matter. Now you say something that offends somebody, and oh my God, you may never be heard from again. And
If
so
you
it's
sneeze and offend somebody, right?
yes, yeah. It's just
It's a
so it's
little too
overwhelming.
much. It's a little
Yes,
too
it's
much right
way
now.
too much. I dislike it greatly. But
Yes.
yeah, I think people have got to figure out, like you said, when they have their superpower, like, look, it's okay, stand up, and it's okay. I think it's okay to talk about yourself. I don't, like, look, yeah, you can get to a point where it's like, all right, that might be enough. Like we've heard that. That's great. Maybe now it's a little braggadocious, but still, like, I want to hear from
Braggadocious.
people, yeah, like I want to hear from people. I want to hear what they got going on. I want to hear what they're great at.
Yeah, well, and you know what the thing is too? It's like the people who can acknowledge where their strengths are and not try to cover up where they maybe can improve. That's how you get those aligned opportunities,
Yeah.
because you're like, this is my superpower. I can do this really well. You put me in that environment, we're going to go down the drain together, because like I'm going to dig my feet in. I'm going to not know what I'm doing. It's going to be really, really hard. But you put me over here, I got you. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, knowing that about yourself allows you to take a stand for those things. And it
Right.
allows you to ask, um, like, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this too, because of your background in entertainment and everything. You can get so many things simply by asking. It's outrageous. Like,
Outrageous.
it's like I have gotten some of the most insane things. People are like, how'd you get that? I'm like,
Yep.
I asked.
It's so true.
And they're
So
like, what? That's it? I'm like, yeah, like literally that's it. I just asked.
yes, that's a great lesson that I'm trying to teach my 11-year-old right now. Like, hey, you just have to ask. And she's just deathly shy, like I was. I get it. But, the other day I was like, hey, you're going to school. I know you're kind of sick. If you need to go to the nurse's office, just ask. All you got to do is just ask to go to the nurse's office. And she got home from school that day, was still sick. I said, why didn't you ask to go to the nurse's office? She was like, I couldn't. I'm like, come on, babe. Like, you gotta stand up for yourself a little bit, and different kind of thing. But you're right, man. I can't tell you how many times I used to wear bands out, like bands that played at my venues and stuff. I would wear them out, walk back there with a phone or a video camera, whatever, and be like, hey, can we shoot a video real quick? Something that I hadn't set up with management, anything. Just grab the lead singer around the shoulder and be like, let's do this. And, and they never said no.
Yeah.
like I got what I wanted because all I did was ask, and I wasn't like I was whipping their ass or anything. Like I just need a little favor. It's fine.
Yeah, and everyone's got their own energy with it, and it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
But you can even I'm part of this really cool space leadership program called Space Kind,
Yeah.
and I'm one of the group leads and TAs for it, and we're in the cohort right now. And the chapter we just read last week was like asking to be acknowledged.
Hmm.
And so it sounds ridiculous, but our brains don't know the difference. If I say, Lloyd, I really need you to tell me that you think I'm a great podcast host and you're really happy to be here. And you say, Sarah, I think you're a great podcast host and I'm really happy to be here. My body will literally get the same feeling as if I didn't ask you and you just told me that out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like when you are upset that, your wife didn't notice that you cleaned the car for her or build the furniture she's been asking you to build for 6 months and you finally did it, or your husband is not appreciative that you do the laundry, or like whatever your hang up or story is, you can literally just go to them and say, hey, I did this thing and I would like to get some recognition for it. Can you tell me that you appreciate that I did this for you? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's going to help you rift so much in your relationship.
It's
And this
so
works
true. It's
with
so
your
true.
kids, it works with your friends, it works with your boss. It's really powerful to just
Yeah. I
ask,
don't
and you
know
can make
anyone
a
that does
game
it.
out of it.
Yeah. I don't know anyone, like, I don't know anyone who's ever done it, including myself, that's ever tried it and it hasn't worked. Like, I think it always works.
Exactly. It always works.
Yeah.
And it's
And
fun. It becomes fun, right? Like you turn
yeah.
it into a little game. Like I've literally gone to friends or partners or whatever and been like, I really just need a hug and for you to tell me it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, give me the hug and like, it's going to be okay. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Yep.
You know, like, and I walk out of the room and
Yeah.
they're a little bewildered because they're like, oh, okay, well, good. I'm glad I could help.
But it just,
Um,
it speaks to so many things. And by the way, Sarah, you're a great podcast host, and I'm so happy to be here and thankful to be
Thank
here.
you. Thank you.
But no, you're right. I mean, I
It's so
tell
great.
my wife, I tell my kids, I tell my dog, for all things, like, hey, look, I need this right now. Could you just help me out a little bit with this? And guess what? They never say no. And then guess what? Afterwards, maybe that leads to a conversation that helps us get in touch with some other things that maybe we had going on, and just leads to better, And I mean,
Yes.
and I love it. But most people, including me, sometimes are scared to ask for it. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I just think it's not that complicated, but we complicate things a lot.
We totally complicate. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, in the beginning, I had to really be like joking or like silly about it just to get it out. And my like knees would be shaking, I'd
Yeah.
be like really, really scared or
Yeah.
like my voice would tremble. And
Yeah.
now that doesn't happen anymore because I've realized like the world doesn't end.
Mm-mm.
I don't, burst into flame. The person doesn't like
Yeah.
smack me across the face going, how
Yep.
dare you,
Yep.
they're reasonable requests and they're usually very, very small. And like you
Yeah.
said, they open that door for really connected conversation.
For sure. Yep.
And that's powerful. And also knowing what you want and being able to like name that in the world is powerful because that's what helps you pivot. I'm going to be punny towards the direction that you want to go in, not that others want you to go in.
So true.
Back to your point, what you were just saying.
Yep. It's so true. And sometimes just for fun, I like to make it awkward too. Like there's one of my buddies who he really does not like anyone to hug him, and especially his male friends. And so I like just like come up to him and go, listen, I'm going to hug you right now. And he dislikes it every time, but I do it. And then I hold on a little bit longer than I need to just to make it a little more awkward for him. And then we laugh about it and it's better. And then I can actually start telling him what's really bothering me about something he did or said, because he says a lot of weird things and sometimes uncomfortable things. So I love to do that to him. It's great.
Yeah. I have one of my best friends in Hong Kong. He's British. Yeah. And I remember we were at the yacht club and we had just been sailing all day. Mm-hmm. I was going through my divorce at the time. And so sailing, like you have to be super present because you have to listen. Like I had a role, I had a job, and I couldn't just be in my mind with whatever was going on. Like I had to be present with the group and do my job. And so I was just feeling like really overcome with like gratitude and And I was in the process of learning how to express these things. And so he put his knife and fork down. He was like, Sarah, I'm only going to say this once, and I don't know if I'll even ever say it again to you, but I really love you a lot and you mean a lot to me. But I'm British and I'm really uncomfortable with this display of affection from you. So like, that's enough. Like you can stop now. It's like, okay, I love you, pal.
Yeah, you got it.
But
All right,
like,
good.
yeah, and like all my British friends are like, oh my God, that's so British. Yes, that's exactly. We're so uncomfortable. We don't know what to do with ourselves.
Yes, I love that. That's hilarious.
So, obviously there's so many like culture, generation, like what industry you work in, like where you grew up, what city, even in that town, in that country that you grew up in, like what you do in your spare time. All of that shapes us.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we can't um, decide to go outside the boundary of our comfort zone and just push that edge a little bit and explore and go, oh, hey, what does that feel like over here?
Yeah. And well, and I, thinking about that more, like, I think that's something like it's all workplace culture these days. And, I owned a lot of businesses. And so I know there's no way that some of my businesses today would operate well having the workplace culture we had back then. Lloyd Banks was a tyrant. I mean, a tyrant back then. Like, I'm mad you're not doing what I tell you. I'm throwing a chair across during our staff meeting, like whatever. I mean, there's many stories and broken stools and chairs out there because of me. But I look at it now and I think if some of those people, and these days, same thing in the workplace, if you just will step up and tell people what you need and what you're feeling, then we can do something about it. Because I know back then, and even more recent, in more recent businesses I own, when I found out that maybe I'd done something that was wrong or offended someone or hurt somebody that worked for me, I mean, my God, I was at my wit's end, like, oh my gosh, I did that, and I was mad at myself. Like, I don't see how I could have done that. And if they'd have just brought it to my attention, I promise it would have been 180 different, like I can't fix the things that I don't know about. And
Right.
so, I just wish people had talked to me more. Some of them were scared of me. Some of them just, I would have to hear it from 3 other people after it got whispered around in the back. And and once I know about
Back
it,
then too, we didn't have those tools.
yeah,
Like societally and culturally wasn't acceptable to talk about certain things, or like it wasn't your place. You just
right.
had to like grin and bear it, right?
Yeah.
And so we now have tools, and this is a thing that can be really difficult, is to like the version of Lloyd that you are now,
Yeah.
and the lessons you've learned and the tools you now have to try to like backward project and say, oh, if I would have, could have, should have done it this way, it would have been different. Yeah, of course. But you didn't have those tools then, neither did your team.
Right.
And so it's like every generation has that.
Yep.
And so, like millennials are unwinding what the boomers did. And, it's like you grow up and you're like, okay, I've done all this work. I've done my inner child healing. And, like I communicate really clearly and I do all these things. Guess what? You're going to still fuck up your kids or your colleagues or whomever, because there's new things that come in. And like, as humans raise their level of consciousness, right? We always expand, and then we can look back and go like, oh, I see why that didn't work, or why in today's world it can't work anymore, right? The container's different.
It's funny. So my wife and I, we have 2 kids. We have a just turned 28 years old and about to turn 12. So basically almost like 2 only children, because when the new one was born, the other one was about to leave. And so basically like 2 only children. And the way that we've parented them is night and day, because the 28-year-old, what was happening in the world then and the way things work then and the way it is now, totally different. I mean, there wasn't really, I don't even know, there wasn't much any social media. I don't know, we might add some MySpace rolling or something like that. That was cool.
Yeah.
But
it's
but
so
now
different.
it's such a different world, and just parenting is completely different. And we sit on the sidelines at soccer games and talk to other parents, and a lot of the parents are a lot younger than us, and we're like, we just nod our heads a lot, like, huh, okay. So we can't.
It's all perspective, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
I shared this reel the other day of, what it was like to be a teenager in the early 2000s.
Right.
And, it was like we were only online when we were in front of a computer, and, we knew how to go home because the street lights came on, and
Yep.
that's was our signal of like, okay, time to ride your bike home. And
Yep.
just, like, yeah, everything is so different. And,
Yeah.
um, obviously that's what nostalgia is. But
Yeah.
what a really good practice that I just got reminded of is to remember that what you're experiencing right now in this moment is the good old days.
Yeah.
There will be a point in time that you will reflect back on this activity, the fact that you had a podcast, the fact that you were doing whatever in your life, and you will remember it fondly and and miss it and like kind of wish after it a little bit and remember those nice times,
For
because we
sure.
don't know when the last time is going to be that we do something.
Yep. Yep.
And
It's so
so
true.
like leaning into that is really powerful. It's really it really helps you appreciate now what's
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
rather than like wishing forward or wishing for the past.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely one of those perspective guys, and my perspective changed a lot. You know, again, when I found the superpower of quitting, I realized like, oh wow, I figured out real quickly a lot of things that I could do to make my life better, things I could quit, and and it all changed my perspective. And
Yeah.
I mean, I tell this story a lot, but like in 2020, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis,
Mm.
and that completely flipped my world, on its axis, just completely,
Yeah.
and changed everything about everything for me. Everything that I thought about one thing was totally different. Everything I thought about everything was different. It just changed everything. And so, like, yeah, I think now everybody talks about how do you live every day to its fullest, and you know what, sometimes that's really hard to do. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to say, and it's wonderful if you can do it. It's really hard to do. Some of us, we got jobs and we're tired and we got stuff to do, and so you know what, if living my life to its fullest is sitting down and watching 2 hours straight of Netflix, then maybe that's the fullest I got today. That's what I got
Yeah,
today. That's great for
absolutely.
today. But I get the sentiment and it's great. But again, with when my perspective changed like that, it made it to where, look, I know I'm not going to go climb Everest or whatever. Like, I'm not doing that. But sometimes just living every day to its fullest is like, hey, you know what? I'm cutting out early today so I can pick my kid up at school, because watching her walk out of school and go get in my car and us go get ice cream or something, that makes it the best day. And
Mm.
so I love everything about a perspective change, and just, and like you said, just making today the good old days. Like, I think you said it brilliantly. Like, that's awesome. Of Instead of trying to live every day to its fullest, is like, hey, make today one of those days you look back and say that was a good old day.
Yeah, absolutely. What
Yeah.
were some of the things that you quit in 2020 after getting this diagnosis?
Woo, man. So it started with my diet, which that the hardest thing ever. So there's a guy, and I'll forget his name right now, but he was diagnosed when he was a young kid with MS, and his dad is a doctor, and his mother, I don't know what her profession was, but they just figured out this whole thing and created this whole diet for him of all these things that they could figure out were bad for you. And that's a whole nother story about, oh my God, what we feed ourselves and what we eat and what
Oh
the
god.
world feeds
Yeah.
us. Like, oh my God, it's atrocious.
Gotta
And
quit junk food, sugar,
God,
all
people
those
should go to
things.
jail for these things. Like, why are they giving us these things? But so my diet was first. I started doing this thing called the Best Bet diet. And I mean, look, I've eaten like a kid my whole life. And so that was where it started. And then having to cut out alcohol, which for a guy who owned bars for 25 plus years, let's be honest, it was hard. It was hard. And it wasn't like I had to stop completely, but it was like, hey, you got to cut way back. And hey, did I show up a couple of times to friends' houses with a bottle of gluten-free wine that tasted horrible? I did, but I drank it so I could have a drink with my friends. And so diet was one of the biggest things. The drinking was one of the biggest things. When it started a little before that, but I knew I'd already started working out and getting in shape and all this stuff, but I knew like I had to keep continuing that and really try to stay healthy, like everything, like mind, body, soul. Like I had to try to heal myself as much as I could. And MS is such a tricky thing because
Mm.
nobody knows what causes it. You have all these weird
Mm.
symptoms, and you have them one day and you don't have them the next, and then you don't have them for 3 weeks, and then they come back, and you never know what's going to happen with it. It's just an odd, weird, strange thing. And so there was a lot of it. But yeah, I mean, I would say the diet, the just overall healthiness, and again, mental, spiritual, everything were changes. I mean, I was wholesale changes in my life is what it was.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's really amazing when we quit the like dopamine hits,
Yeah.
right? Those quick fixes that we're seeking, and we start really going for the long term
Yep.
and having that discipline for ourselves, how everything else changes. And what you chose 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago may no longer be the thing that your body needs, that your mind needs, that your soul needs, right? Um, and finding a way to be okay with that, and allowing yourself to create space for something new to come in is really powerful.
Yep. It's funny because I think everybody knows. I mean, look, everybody knows, hey, I probably shouldn't run in the kitchen or wherever I am and grab a bag of Cheetos and a Coke. Like I shouldn't do that. But they do it. And
Right.
so for me, like I've said it all along, many of the things that I regret in my life, whatever, like, why did it have to get to this point before
Mm.
I was smart enough to make that decision, or someone made the decision for me? Like, why do we wait to that point? And so, yeah. And talking to people about quitting and trying to coach people on quitting, that's one of the things that I try to help them foresee is like, look, hey, if you continue on this path, what does that look like for you a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
Yeah.
And is that what you want? Because is that where you want to be 3 years from now or 2 years from now? I mean, do you have more reasons that you want to live? Then guess what? Then stop eating Cheetos and drinking Cokes 14 times a day. Like, it's bad for you. Stop it,
Yeah. I
but
know. And, I think people cling to this like idealized version of who they are, or that they have in their head. Right. And that's what actually causes the most source of stress is that the like you're not congruous with the idea you have in your head. So you're like feeling this guilt, when you can either quit the idea you have in your head or you can quit the behavior that doesn't match the idea that you say you want.
right.
And so acknowledging like one of the things that I um, earlier in the year acknowledged was like, man, I like all the perks of running a business, but I sure as hell don't really want to do all the things that come with running a business, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
And then like admitting that to myself allowed me to open up my mindset around what type of business did I want to run? What was I willing to do? What was I ready to give up?
Yeah.
And that opened the door for new opportunities and new ways of working where I could still have the things that I enjoyed without having to have the stress or the
Right.
like. I at this point, right at this moment in time, I don't want to run a team and have to worry about payroll and like grow a company and a business.
Right.
That's like not my desire.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe that will be right. But just getting really clear on that
Yeah.
helped me to pivot my focus, take back some of my own energy that was wrapped up in anxiety and worry and like the desire to prove myself,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I was like, who am I trying to impress anyways? Like,
Yeah.
I just got to worry about me. Like, who
Yep.
cares?
Yep. And
And that was very freeing.
yep. I get it. I mean, that's
Mm.
for years. I did what I did because I thought that, oh my God, what if other people, I let other people decide what my version of success was. And it was so dumb. Like, and I didn't know, like, oh my God, if I don't have these bars and clubs and restaurants, like everybody just knows me as Lloyd, the bar guy, the nightclub owner. I mean, my handle on social media used to be your bar owner. And so I thought that's the only way that people know me and would accept me and love me and like me and all that. And it took me a long time, even after I got rid of all of them and sold them and whatnot, it took me a long time to really accept that. And it was lonely for a while, because I was
Mm.
like, oh, well, I don't see couple thousand people every weekend now at my bars and clubs and things like that. And it was weird. And, you know, I remember my wife used to tell me a lot throughout the days. It's like, these people are not your friends.
Yeah.
They just want whatever you will give them. That's what they want from you, is whatever, free cover, free drinks, meet
Hey,
the
guess
band.
what?
Yeah.
That is literally a lot of people would meet in life.
Yeah, for
If you
sure.
present something and they're like, whatever they can get from you. So you got to give what you're willing to give that's
Yep.
authentic,
Yep.
because when you stop giving the thing because you're tired of putting up a pretense, guess what? They're not going to like you anymore. They won't be
Yep.
there.
Yep. And it's so funny because to this day, I still get a bunch of people that ask me to open another bar, another club. And it's funny, like it's actually just happened recently. A bunch of people coming at me about it. And it's funny. I'm like, man, I haven't heard from that person in whatever, 5-6 years, whenever I closed my last one, you know. And I'm like, now all of a sudden they're coming out of the woodworks. And I also like to laugh at it because I'm like, if I opened another one, would you ever show up? You're 40 now. You're not going out. You're not going to the bar. Like, calm down. So relax. Like, I'd see you twice a year. Yeah, I'd see you twice a year when you get a babysitter and your wife tells you you're allowed to go out or whatever. So
yeah.
But
so funny. Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because that journey, you know, I think entrepreneurship is definitely the fast track to like dealing with your own shit.
yeah.
People don't necessarily realize that, but it is actually a very spiritual journey because like you come face to face with a lot of truths that you maybe wouldn't see otherwise, or
Right.
you know, that you have to face if you want to be successful, or if you're going to persevere through the very low lows that are going to come with that, right?
Yep.
And in that process, when you start to decide that I choose myself and I'm not going to change myself so that you choose me, that's very powerful, because then no matter what type of partnership, opening a bar, relationship, whether that's romantic or friend or, you know, employer, employee, you know, whatever, you will be able to be more clear and decide like, is this right for me? Am I in the right place or no? But until you have that clarity, you will continue to, you know, repeat patterns or find yourself in similar situations because you're not choosing yourself.
Right. Yep. And that reminds me of, you know, I've told the story 1,000 times, but this is like there's a moment when everything, like giant light bulb, literally I could see it above my head. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in the last club I owned and we were packed. I mean, the place was crazy packed. And I went in my office and I sat down at my desk and I was doing something. And then I got up like I was going to go back out there and I opened the door and I see the place just packed and it's crazy. And I closed the door back and I sat down and I realized that I was absolutely, positively just miserable and unhappy as I could possibly be in my life. And I thought, man, why are you so unhappy? Look, there's a packed house out there. Look at all those people having the time of their lives. You know, look at this entertainment you have brought them. You know, look what you've done.
Are you not entertained?
Exactly. And I was like, they were entertained. They were having a good time. I was miserable. And that's really what set everything in motion for me, realizing, you know what, I'm going to figure out my way out of this game. And I did, you know, that, but I remember it started that night and it was as clear as it could be. And again, it was like, I'm so glad all these other people are happy. I've spent my life trying to make all these other people happy, but I just realized I'm miserable. And at some point it's gotta be, I got to do something for me. It's gotta be about me at some point.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, it's amazing when those moments of clarity come in because it just becomes easy, even when it's a difficult thing or, you know, other people are upset or disappointed or, you know, sad, you know that it's the right thing. And it just becomes so easy to make those decisions. And it's, you know, the more we get to know ourselves, the more we slow down, the more we quit lying to ourselves, right? That's something that we all do. We're human. We like to put ourselves in a really positive light, right? And so the more we can do that, the easier it becomes to like even recognize before you get into something or like very soon after getting into something like, nah, 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 nah. I've played this game before. It's all just a game.
Yeah.
Like, you know how to play that game, and you could
Yep.
probably go open that bar for your friend and, like, completely slay it, and it would be great because you know that game. You know it very, very well, but
Yeah.
do you wanna play it? Like, just
No.
because you're good at something and you can know how to do it doesn't mean you should.
No, exactly. Yep. And I've said it many a time since then. Like even when sometimes I've almost teased myself enough to think maybe I should just go open one. And then I think, oh my God, what are you doing? Like remember
Right?
that
You're just,
night?
like, bargaining
Yeah.
with yourself.
Remember that night? We're not negotiating with ourselves today. No, not today. And so, yeah, I remember like
Go to the corner, go back in
yeah,
your corner.
yes. But yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to have employees again. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It wasn't like, well, yeah, sometimes it was them. Sometimes it was totally them. Sometimes that was like, never own a restaurant. People are awful, like everybody thinks because they've eaten at a few restaurants that they know how to run one and they will be happy to
Oh,
explain that
man,
to
it
you,
is a
how to do it.
whole 'nother world.
Oh my God. People are awful. That's why like I'm overly nice when I go
Oh,
anywhere.
if you've ever watched the movie Waiting with Ryan
Oh,
Reynolds, like,
so true.
you should be nice to your servers. Also, it's a
Absolutely.
really great point of character. Like,
Yeah.
how does this person treat service staff, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can learn a lot about somebody just
Oh,
by
yes.
observing that.
Yes.
Um,
One of my
yeah, I
one of my
so
funniest stories is so my last restaurant. So everybody, we had this great patio that overlooked this little private lake. It's really pretty, and there was a table out there, and it was a group of ladies, and I'm guessing they were probably in their mid-ish 40s, something like that. There was 5 or 6 of them, and I went out there, and they were just berating my server. And then when I went and stepped in, they started berating me and I guess they weren't expecting this from me, but I'm like, look, this ain't corporate, baby. This is me. This is my spot, and I'm the boss and I'm the owner. And so I very unpolitely invited them to leave. I took their bill and ripped it up. I said, you don't even have to pay it. Just promise me you'll never come back here. And they said, well, we're going to tell everyone not to come back here. I said, if they're anything like you, please tell them not to come here.
I love
And
it.
so they
Yeah.
left. And some people, I guess, that were sitting at the next table, I don't even know, like an hour later or something, my server or the server from the next table comes over laughing. I go, what? And she hands me a note. And those people at the next table had written in it said, to the owner, that was the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my life. Those bunch of Karens deserved everything you said to them and more, blah, 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 like just cheering me on. And I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, well, that's great.
Oh, I love
I was
it.
like, it probably
Also,
wasn't great for business, but it felt good.
well, you know what? No, but okay, so here's the thing. I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not,
Amen.
right?
Yep.
And and it took me a while to get there, and I'm sure I'm gonna have moments where I'm gonna wobble and be like, "Oh, but I really want you to like me."
Right.
But, that's what was happening. You're like, "Great. If your friends are anything like you, then good. I don't want them
Yeah.
here. Like, please tell your circle of horrible,
Yep.
disrespectful people to not come here."
Yes,
Because then
please.
everyone else who is watching that also is like, "This is a joint where, like, only cool shit can fly. Like, I
Yeah.
wanna bring my friends here."
Yep.
And so you attract, right? Like, you can literally create your own orbit that brings the right people in and repels the wrong people out, right?
Yep.
Like, they just won't even want to come there. They may not
Yep.
even notice the place, right?
Yep.
It's really wild, but when you are very clear what you stand for and what you don't,
Yep.
that decision can be made for you. You don't have to sit in the gray and decide because it's just gonna repel the people that shouldn't be there.
Yep. It was something that I never thought I'd look back and say, "Hey, you know what? That's a good that's a that flows well with like, hey, that's how we should live our lives, like we should live our
Yeah.
lives by not letting horrible, awful people in our circle and around us and in our space and orbit."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I never thought that day. I was just mad at some women. So I was just really
Yeah.
angry at these angry old ladies. So,
Poor Karen, like, anyone who's named
yeah.
Karen is, like, gotta
Oh, I
deal
know.
with this
Yeah.
now, or, like,
Yeah.
anyone named Chad,
Yes.
it's just like,
It's
this
unfair.
is
It's
but,
unfair.
what I was gonna say, so talking about, like, being in alignment, I went to, one of these creative mornings here in
Mhm.
Austin. They're, like, all over the world. They're usually on, I think, a Friday morning or something. You can Google them, check it out, and this guy was talking about, 'cause so he is a one of these typewriter poets,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so they'll be up on the street and you'll walk by and they'll just like, you give them a word and they'll write you a poem. And so he was talking about how, because he's also by day does like, he's a lawyer, right? So obviously, like very different styles of writing, these
Yeah.
two things. But when he was in school, like in high school, and he's probably in his 50s now, and he was like, I was the star player, I was a quarterback of football and this, but like I hated football. And I didn't know how to like tell my coach or my mom
Right.
or anybody. Like I felt like I had all this pressure on me. Like I had to like be this winning quarterback. And he's like, I mean, I probably wouldn't have gotten away with it now, but like, you know what I did? I literally faked a neck injury. I
Wow.
fell on the ground during a pass and like I went in. And then the doctor looked at me and was like, well, we can't find anything, but with these things, they can be really sensitive and we don't want to push it. And I got off. I didn't have to play anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, and now looking back, like, I should have, but I didn't have the tools to do that back then. I was like a
Yeah.
16-year-old kid. He's like,
Nope.
but like in today's technology, they probably were like, nah, you're fine. And I would have had to then figure out how
Dang it.
else am I going to get out of football.
Yes.
But that's what he did to like get out of the thing that he
Yeah.
didn't like. And he
Yeah.
felt that was his only resort.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a very comical story when he tells it now, but it's pretty wild to think that like you're so scared to just talk about your truth
Yeah.
that you would rather fake an injury than
Yeah.
just say, look, man, I don't want to play football anymore.
Yeah. And there's just another thing that's just like, hey, quitting is not bad. If you're not happy, it's not bad. It's okay
And
to
you
quit.
don't owe anyone an explanation. Like,
No.
honestly,
No.
if you have a signed contract, a little different, right?
Right.
Then you might
Right.
need to have some sort of
Right.
explanation or something like that. Or if you can't just like walk out the door and then, like not tell your
Right.
family where you're going and disappear.
Right.
I don't advocate for this. Okay.
Right.
But, like I recently got invited to do something and, I've gotten a lot better about not justifying or like over explaining. But I said, look, bottom line, I don't want to do this. And I don't have the time. I'm really focusing. She's like, you could have stopped it. I don't want to do this.
Right.
She's like, I don't need to know the reasons why you
Yeah.
don't want to. I accept that you don't want to. And I was like,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And look, and people, whatever, I get quite a bit of backlash online and social media from people like, you should stop telling people to quit. That's horrible. It's whatever. They whatever.
They have too much time on their hands.
100% too much time. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you bothering me? Like, I'm just some dude. Don't worry about me. Go.
Right.
Go.
And also if you're that easily influenced,
yeah,
maybe you need to look at your own self and what you
Yeah.
stand for.
And if you follow me for more than like one post that maybe you didn't bother to read or watch the video, then okay, fine. But watch another one, I promise. Because I tell people all the time,
quit me. That's
never.
what you should
Yes,
say.
exactly. You can quit me. But I tell people all the time, never quit on your team and never quit on your dream. Like, look, if my daughter, 11 years old, plays competitive soccer, if she decides she doesn't want to play soccer anymore, I would tell her that is absolutely 100% fine with me, but we signed up for this team and you signed up for a commitment. So you're at least going to finish the season because that's what we have to do. Like that's our obligation. We signed up for it. We made the agreement. We all agreed that's what we're doing. So we're not quitting on our team. And then I tell people, don't quit on your dream. But look, if the way you've been trying to achieve your dream, if these goals or whatever are not leading you to that dream, then look, keep the dream, but quit what you're doing to try to get there. Pivot on it. Yeah. Like just if that's
there
not
you
working,
go. Look at this collaboration. Don't quit. Pivot.
Yeah. Just quit, pivot, get your dream. But again, like that's what people think. Like, oh, if I'm not getting there, then I guess I'm just going to give up on my dream. You don't have to give up on your dream. Just stop the things you're doing to try to get there because that is not working. So it's fine. Come up with a new path.
I agree. It's like the quit and pivot is like pop and lock or like, this just like, it's just a thing. It's a little dance you're going to do. But, and it is because I love that you said, don't like quit the dream because your dream can change shape. It can evolve.
Yep.
And so you need to quit what you were doing before. You need to quit those tactics, those strategies, and really recalibrate. And that is actually, so like with pivoting, you often use hand flying as an example,
Okay.
because when you're flying an aircraft, you're not like, a lot of people have the joystick in their mind or the yoke, right?
Right.
You're not like going like this to turn. It's like a very gentle two fingers, and you're just like gently turning. And if you're hand flying the airplane, it's micro adjustments the whole time,
Right.
right? If you fly a drone, micro adjustments. You're not like making wild swings.
Right.
So if you're paying attention in your life and you're making those micro adjustments, you're not going to go so far down that you have to quit and it's some big drastic thing.
For sure.
You're going to be able to make the decision much sooner.
Yep.
And so it's just about like orienting yourself in the right direction and navigating towards the dream, and understanding that sometimes there's like side quests, especially
For
for my
sure.
ADHD friends out there. We love a side quest.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. And I think some people start down these, I don't know, they think like I've got this dream and I've got to just work and hustle and grind and do everything to try to get there. And that's fine. That's fine. Look, I never would tell someone don't work hard. Yes, work
Right.
hard. If you want to achieve things in life, most of the time you're going to have to work hard. You're probably not winning the lottery. Let's just say it. You're not winning the lottery. Look, I've tried. You're not winning it. So, but that doesn't mean you don't have to work hard. You've got to work hard, but it's also okay that sometimes your dream might change too. Also okay. Sometimes your goals change. Okay. That's fine to quit those things and pivot towards something that's going to make you happy. Because too many people, like I run across this all the time. And in fact, I've had a couple of coaching clients recently that I got the sense that I finally had to ask them, like, do you not think that you should be happy or have joy? And they had to think about that. And the fact that they even had to think about it before they answered made me sad, because I unequivocally think that everybody has the right to be happy, to have joy, and just to live their lives. And look, again, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. I get all that. But again, if you're doing something that's making you miserable, you're in a miserable relationship, you have a job you absolutely loathe and hate, and it makes you sad and mad and angry and miserable every day, quit. Just quit. And again, let me pause and side note say, don't just quit your job one day. Like that's not smart. Make sure you have a plan in
Throw the
place.
papers up. They're
Yes,
like,
yes.
I'm out of here. Lloyd told me to quit.
Yes. Yeah, because I've gotten that before too. Like you told me. Like, no. Always have a
Use
plan.
your critical thinking skills.
Yes, please. I can't do it all for you, but I can help you get there. So anyway, I just it makes me sad, to be honest, that so many people think that they don't have or they don't deserve the right to be happy or to have joy. And that they think they have to keep following this path that makes them miserable. Like it makes me sad, makes me miserable. Like that's, I think why, again, so go back, kind of rewind to the, 2020 thing. Like when my whole perspective changed because of the MS thing, I realized that I'd spent a lot of my life being selfish, and I decided I was going to spend the rest of my life being selfless. And how can I figure out how to help people and help them find their joy and their happy the way I did? Because I never thought I would have to be diagnosed with some debilitating disease for me to realize that, hey, you know what? Look what I did now. I got rid of this and I quit this and I quit that and I quit that. And now I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. And everybody deserves that. And they shouldn't have to get diagnosed with a crappy disease to figure that out. So let me figure out how to help them figure it out.
Yeah. And, more and more people are waking up to that, or they're catching it sooner. I mean, I also had a health crisis at like 30, right? And I thought that the doctor was just, I laughed at him when he's like, oh, you have to slow down because otherwise you're going to get a heart problem in 2 years. I was like, okay, I'm 29. Great. Like eye roll, right? And then 6 months later, my body started shutting down. I started having like major problems. And I was like, what is going on? I lost my menstrual cycle. And I was like, I thought that was a myth, that all these girls were just fucking making stuff up or like exaggerating, or that they were weak, like whatever stupid story I had in my head about things, and it really made me look in the mirror. But I also had to look at, like what was I doing that was causing those things and how I was like living. And a lot of my busyness was to escape the feelings I didn't know how to process and
Yep.
handle. And then it just became this like rapid cycle that just would get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And now, like when the emotions come through, they don't last as long. Like maybe I'll get overcome with some emotion and I'll cry for like 30 seconds.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, cool. Well, that needed to come out.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on with the day. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and it's not a big deal.
Right.
But it feels like a big deal when you don't know how to do that in the beginning.
Yep. Well, and I think, and I wonder how many people, because I've had people question me before, and I bet you have too, or if not, I guarantee that they've thought it, is that people like you and me that talk about what we talk about, I would think that some of the people have questioned me like, well, so man, life must be great for you. You just walk around happy all the time and everything's wonderful.
Incorrect.
Blah, blah, blah. You know, you got this, you just know how to quit it. So life's great again.
Nope.
I'm like, hang on a second. No. That's not the way life works. Trust me.
No, there's still a hard moment.
Oh my God. Last week I had 2 or 3 days where I was so full of just self-hate and negative self-talk. And then I don't know what it was. Finally, one day I just was like I was getting ready and I looked in the mirror. I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, why has this week been so crappy for you? And why are you hanging on to these? And how about, guess what? You have a book you're writing and you have pages of stuff that you do and coach on. How about go read some of that, dude? Follow your own advice. And you know what? I did. And the next day I was much happier. In fact, later that day I was happier.
You know what I want to tell all those people?
No.
The thing that people coach, teach on, therapize about, workshop.
Yeah.
They do it because that's the medicine that they need most.
Yeah.
I talk about slowing down. I talk about change being good. Why? Because I need to slow down and I need to also like I had to learn how to accept change and not be so rigid.
Yep.
You know, and maybe I have a little bit, maybe I don't have a healthy dose of fear of change and it's like makes me a little bit reckless sometimes. That's why I need to slow down. Right.
Yeah.
So this is what I talk about.
Yeah.
You talk about quitting because you need the reminder too to quit the shit that doesn't
all the
work.
time. All the
right?
time. Yeah. All the time. I mean, I'm still guilty of like I was raised by a workaholic father who I love dearly and he's great and wonderful and I love him but I didn't think I had caught that gene until after college. And then after college, I was like, oh my gosh, here I am. And so now I've really learned how to slow down, but I have to battle myself on it weekly when an opportunity arises and someone's like, Lloyd, would you want to get into this or try this? And I think, man, that would be awesome. And then I go, wait, I don't have another 30 hours a week to spare. So maybe I shouldn't do that. And so, but it's a constant battle.
I got invited to say this mantra and sit with it is I get to say no to great things.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when things come across my desk, I'll pause and sometimes I just practice saying no.
Yeah.
Even though I actually want to go, I'll be like, you know what? No, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's actually really interesting to just experience that because, you know, I definitely used to really suffer from FOMO.
Yeah.
Now I get JOMO. Now I'm like, oh my God, I want to be home where there's no people.
Yes.
And I don't have to deal with the crowd or traffic. I went to ACL on Friday and Saturday, Austin City Limits. It was so much fun. But somebody was like, you want to come Sunday? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I know I'd have fun when I'm there, but like I don't want to be chattel crawling out at the end. I don't want to have to walk a mile and a half to get an Uber. I want to just do nothing on Sunday. And there was definitely, I fought it. I was like, oh, you could go for a couple hours. You could not deal with the crowds. And I was like, nope, no, we're going to say no to this. We're just going to lie here and not need to do anything productive.
Yeah.
Just be.
You're brave. My oldest was there on Sunday and she said it was just insane and crazy. And she was like, we were so far from the stage, I couldn't even hear it. And I was like,
I know, yeah.
That's a long way.
So. Yeah, I mean, talk about emotional roller coaster. Like on Friday, I was crying during Blink 182. All the teen emotions came up, you know, and I was like, whew, didn't realize that was in there. Cool, but it's out.
Yeah.
Like, so like my best friend and I were like, there's the trio of us. We're the pinky crew. Because
Yeah.
last year people had their hands behind their back, and I was taking my pinky, and I was like, can I hook them? It's just like being really ridiculous, right?
Right.
And then like to find somebody, my friend would be like, the pinky in the air, and it's like really random to just see a pinky. So you're
Yes.
like, oh, that's where they are.
Got it.
Um,
That's funny.
but yeah, like we were like one of them was consoling me, and I was consoling him when he was having his hard time, and
Yeah.
Jason was consoling both of us. And then like the next day we were just like all laughing and having a great time. And it's just allowing yourself to experience those things, and like,
Yep.
no, like, yeah, you're still gonna have lows.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well,
Those are important too.
and I love that you were able to say no, because again, I'm with you. That used to be the
Old
hardest
Sarah would have
word.
not said no. Old
Yeah,
Sarah would
right.
have been like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm getting home at 4 a.m. and I'm going back in at 11. Like, cool.
Let's go. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, that was my hardest word. No was my hardest word to not only say, but get good at saying it, and realizing that it's okay. And I can't recall, I'm sure there was somebody, but I can't recall anyone along the way that was ever mad at me for saying no, and
right.
it's not like I said it rudely. I made sure anytime I say no, I say it politely, but
Right.
nobody's gotten mad at me for saying no.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
And also there was an invitation. I forget who it was. One of the newsletters I follow this week. And it was, maybe it was Sahil Bloom, might've been him, but, saying no now, like if you don't want to do something, it's even more kind than pretending that you do want to go and then being resentful about it, right? But the other invitation was, if you think that you will have time for this in the future, you can also still say no now, because if you look at your history, you're probably bad at really budgeting and estimating your time well. And I used to be a chronic overbooker.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'll say, you know what, that sounds really great. Let's get a little bit closer and I'll see if I have capacity for it. So it's, it could be a not yet. My mom was a master at this. I have to share this. Okay. When I was a kid, and I'd say like, can I get this thing at the store? Right.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, maybe next time. So then I'd pick up the thing and I'd be like, mom, maybe next time, can we get the thing? Can we get this? And then she'd be like, yeah, maybe next time. So I got a yes. Right. So I like, as a little kid, I'm like, oh, cool. That felt good. But I also learned, like, if it was a book or an educational thing, she'd usually say yes. And sometimes I'd be like, mom, last time you said maybe next time. Is this the next time? And, she probably thought it was like, oh God, this kid's smart. You're cute. Okay, fine. I'll get it. So sometimes it would work. Right.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Like, but yeah, there's other ways of saying no too. Not yet. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
All of those things. Give yourself more space, right?
Yeah.
Is essentially what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like I used to be fun. When I went out, I was fun. I was the guy who, like, you wanted me to come with you because it was going to be fun if I'm there. Yeah. Now I politely tell people, like, you don't want me to go. I am not going to be fun. And by 8 o'clock, I'm going to be griping and bitching about everything. Like, it's hot in here.
Get off my lawn.
Why are these drinks so expensive? Like, it's almost my bedtime. It's 8 o'clock.
$25 for this cocktail?
Seriously.
So funny.
That's another story. Yeah. My wife and I went out a couple weekends ago for our anniversary, and I was floored at how much a cocktail costs these days. I was like, we went and sat down at the bar at the hotel we were staying at, and the guy was like, good news, it's happy hour. I was like, cool. So we both have one drink, and then he brought me the bill, and it was $48. And I go, these are the happy hour price? He goes, yeah. I go, great.
Yeah.
Here's my credit card. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's wild. It's so funny. I'm going to send you this song that you're going to appreciate. It's like this DJ did a mashup, and he's like, this is all for all my over, I think he put 35-year-olds, right? And it's like, I used to have fun and I don't do anything. Like, just this whole like thing. And it goes through several iterations of that, but it's just, it's great. It's like,
so true. I
want to be. You know what? Sleeping is also a superpower.
Yeah.
It's a really fun one too.
Yes. I'm a fan, and I honestly don't sleep enough,
10
and
out
I
of 10.
know, yeah,
Would rate it.
yes, absolutely. Like, give me more sleep. My my wife recently was sleeping upstairs with our because our grand doggies were at our house, and
Yeah.
we can't fit all the dogs into our bed with us, so she'll just go sleep upstairs with some of the dogs, and I'll keep one in my bed. So it's just how we work it out, and like
Yeah.
everybody's happy, no one's awake all night, and so when she goes upstairs and sleeps up there, this guy's like, dude, I'm going to stay up and watch shows that my wife doesn't like. And next thing I know, I'm up till midnight and I regret it all week. Like, I'm like, I stayed up twice, 2 nights in a row till midnight watching stupid TV shows. And my
Wild.
alarm still goes off at 5:25 to get up and go work out. And so, yeah, regret. That's like quit
You can quit
doing
that
this.
behavior. Yeah, you can
Yes.
quit that behavior.
I tell myself all week, you gotta quit doing that, or we gotta quit babysitting the grand dogs because apparently when my wife leaves the room, I'm just
You have no self-control.
no, can't leave me alone. Like it's a bad idea. It's a horrible idea.
I love it. All right, Lloyd, what is besides quitting, what else would you say is your superpower?
That's a really good question because I'm not sure I have one other than quitting. No, I would say that I am I feel like I am incredibly good at making people happy. I think it's why I was successful in my bar and nightclub career because I made people feel happy and special. And there was nothing I love more than walking the floor and shaking hands and kissing babies and talking to people and just making sure that, look, I will probably never remember their name, but they walked out of there thinking, man, the owner is like my best
You
friend.
felt special. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've always tried to do that. And whether I was in or out of the industry, I still do it to this day. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like wherever I go, whatever, I'm trying to leave everybody with a smile on their face. And so I like to think that's one of my superpowers. My wife really, it's annoying as hell to her because she's like, can we just leave? Why do you have to have a 3-minute conversation with the guy at the gas station? I'm like, I don't know. I just wanted to make sure he was having an okay day. That's it.
I love that. Well, and you know what? That also speaks to being uber present
Yeah.
because in order to be able to do that, you really clue in on their the body language and the signals that they're giving off. And that really requires presence. So tied in with that, I definitely think presence would be a good superpower for you.
Yep. I can live with that.
Awesome. Now, if you had to name a personal board of directors,
Yes.
thinking about so like it's not just people that you know. It could
Yeah.
also be a fictional character, someone from the past, someone
Yep.
you haven't met yet, but you adopt their lens and their perspective, their philosophy in which to like make a decision and help you consider a new perspective.
Yep.
Who would be on your personal board?
Okay. I've got a good combo here. I definitely would put my parents on there because they taught me about love and faith, excuse me, faith and integrity. My wife, because she's my biggest supporter, keeps me grounded even when she wants to stab me. She's got to be on there, otherwise she'd be mad. So then I would say like maybe I don't know, maybe not an odd one, but I'd say Jesus because his example reminds me to live with grace and compassion. And then kind of I think this is kind of my funny one, but it's serious. I would have Dwayne the Rock Johnson on my board because I love his work ethic and I love his positivity. Like I feel like he's just infectious. Like every time I watch him, like I laugh, I smile, and I also want to work harder all at the same time. And I think he's super sweet. And then I think the last person I would put on there is my younger self because I always want to remind myself, I guess, to stay true to that kid who dreamed so big long ago.
Mm.
So I think there's probably some other people who deserve to be there, but that's my choices for today.
I love it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's really powerful to, acknowledge that And so for anyone watching, thinking about who might be on your board, if they are in your life, reaching out and telling them that you appreciate them. I just did that this morning, actually, to someone.
Yeah.
It was an invitation I got yesterday in the small groups that we have after the main session of Space Kind. And not only did I feel wonderful doing that and expressing it, but that's a courageous thing to do,
For sure.
to be not playing it cool or whatever we try to do, right? But I've been on the receiving end of that too, and it just it usually comes right at the time you really need something like that most. So I invite everybody to think about who's on your board and maybe reach out to them and just say hey, thanks for being rad and for being in my life.
I have breakfast with one of my best buddies every Wednesday, and he's one of my best friends, but he's also kind of a mentor and whatnot to me. And so whatever, we just share everything, business, personal, whatever. We just talk about, and some weeks it's really serious. Some weeks there's not one serious thing that we say during breakfast, but so yesterday we sat down and I just told him, I said, hey man, I don't know if I've told you in a while how much I love these Wednesday mornings and how important it is for me and to me, and how I love just getting to spend a little bit of time with you, no matter what we're talking about. I love it. And he reciprocated the whole feeling and the love fest. And it was just great. But I just felt like I didn't have to tell him that, but I just felt like, you know what, I want to make sure he knows that this is really cool for me every week and important to me. And that I love just getting to spend a little time with him.
That makes my heart so happy. And, you just reminded me too I was talking about this very thing with a friend of mine last year. We have a conference coming up in a couple of weeks. And, well, no, actually it was earlier this year when we were at a conference. And, I was talking about this whole thing of you never know when it's going to be the last time that you do something or that you see someone. Right. And so if you have that type of feeling when you're with someone, to share that, express it.
Absolutely.
And he's like, I have a story to tell you. So he told me this story about one of his very best friends, like you just mentioned. And they had just one of those kind of random nights, after a aviation meeting that they had been in, and they went for a couple drinks. And, they walked to the train station together in New York City and got on the train. And when his friend went to get off, I think he was continuing on, or vice versa, whatever. He just turned around. He's like, I didn't know why I felt compelled to, but I just shook my friend's hand and gave him a big hug and looked him in the eyes and told him how much he meant to me and how I had a really good evening.
So great.
And then the next day he didn't show up for something, and he found out that he had been in a car accident and he passed. Yeah. And he was like, so I absolutely believe that if you feel that way about someone, you should tell them when you have the chance.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't know if I would have held that in, I would feel so different right now, but I am so glad that I expressed it. And I still have goosebumps. It's not even my story and I have goosebumps.
Yeah. That's a big
but
one.
It really stuck with me. And so now I'm just you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
If it's too much or you're going to be uncomfortable, my British friend, I'm going to give you a big old bear hug because I'm American and I want to tell you I love you.
Yeah. No, I'm the I love you guy now. Around all our friends, sometimes and I think I've got my whole friend group doing it now. There's much hugging, much I love yous going on, and I'm
choose love. This is my motto.
You're not getting away without me hugging you and telling you I love you. It's not happening. I mean, my favorite guys to watch on Instagram are the guy who just stands there on the street and gives people hugs and tells them he loves them, and sometimes he hands them $10,000 too, which is even more awesome. Man, I want to be in that position, but I just love it.
One day.
Yeah. I just love it.
We're not there yet, but one day
we're getting there.
Have a hug. We can have a free hugging station and then do that kind of surprising. Maybe we start with $10.
I'm in.
And then we can work our way up from there. Okay.
I'm so in anytime.
Okay. Next, when we're together in the real life matrix, then we can do this.
Yes. I say we make it happen.
We're going to make it. We're going to make it happen. Where are you, Dallas?
Yep.
All right. I'm due for a Dallas trip soon. I've got a few mates up there. So,
all right.
All right. Done. Deal. Everyone who's watching, you heard it here first.
That's right.
We will make sure this happens.
Don't let us screw this up.
Don't let us quit that. That's our dream. We're not quitting that.
We are pivoting to more hugs. That's what we're doing.
And you can run as long as you want. we'll probably run longer and we'll give you a
Yeah.
hug.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can accept the hug, receive the hug, well, only with consent. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
With
Yeah,
consent,
yeah.
you can receive the hug. Otherwise, I will beam out like a Care Bear towards you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You got to be that guy. He like wears a blindfold and says, "You come give me a hug." That way, it's on you. You know.
Speaking of, Mike, one of my friends runs the most amazing sessions. Her name's Jessica N.C. Coleman. She's in Santa Barbara.
Yep.
If you want to just like really love and just you need more love in your life, she is one of the best facilitators I've ever experienced.
Nice.
You just reminded me of like some of the stuff she does. So
Yeah.
yeah, she's awesome.
Okay.
Jessica, I'm gonna tag her in this because she deserves a shout out. But
Hi,
yeah,
Jessica.
she's like facilitated over 1 million hugs. Some crazy.
That's
She's done the
awesome.
math.
Seriously?
And it's like, yeah, it's wild. And she's just like a beam. She's like a rainbow beam of light. And I just love her so much. So she's going to join us on this hugging adventure, I'm sure. I'm going to rope her in.
I love her already. So
amazing. All right. Final question. Alien comes to planet Earth and you are the first human they meet. What do they learn about humanity because they've met you?
All right.
How do you best represent us?
Is it okay if I cheated on this one?
Yes.
Okay. I cheated on it because I was thinking about these questions. I've heard you ask other people and I thought, okay, the other two, I got that. This one is like, I want to make sure I get this one right. So I really spent some time the last couple of days thinking about like, all right, what would I say to this question? And so here's what I wrote down that I came up with. So if an intelligent life form came to Earth and met me, I'd want them to see that humanity's strength lies in its ability to evolve, adapt, and simplify. I represent the power of transformation, not the kind that comes from adding more, but from taking away what's unnecessary to reveal the core of who we are. And I'd show them that the true essence of humanity is found in letting go of what doesn't matter, embracing what does, and finding harmony in our purpose and daily actions, because I aim to be a reminder that simplicity is strength, and it's through shedding the excess that we find our true impact.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Mic drop moment.
Yeah, I had to write all that down. I could never say that without writing it. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for putting some time and thought into it as well.
Yeah,
you know, I know I typically give the guests on the show like a day or two of notice. And some people who know me know these questions are coming.
Yeah.
But, you know, occasionally it just gets dropped on someone and they're like, whoa, I need to like sit with this.
Yeah.
But it is a great thing to think about. So thank you for that. That was beautiful. Where can people find you besides Dallas and our hugging booth?
Yes.
So
my website is Lloyd Speaks. It's Lloyd with 2 L's, lloydspeaks.com. And then most of my socials are like Lloyd Quits. My YouTube channel is Lloyd Speaks. So yeah, Lloyd Speaks, Lloyd Quits. That's most of the places you can find me. That's the important places.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, Lloyd, thank you so much. I've had so much fun today, and I look forward to rendezvousing in Dallas and spreading some hugs and some love.
Sarah, you are a great podcast host. Let's bring that back. You are a great podcast host, and I'm incredibly happy and so joyful that you allowed me to come on and be on your show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I'll see you soon.
See you soon.